doesn't contain animal products. No, it's got nothing to do with chimpanzee. It can't alter your DNA. It doesn't contain any
that one.
magnet. So,
So does it have the live virus in there? Because a lot
no,
of
it
people,
doesn't have the live virus.
because a lot of people
And that's
say
really-
that they're introducing the virus into your system. So live virus into the system, so your system kind of fights it. So that's why you don't feel well on the day. That's what I've heard.
So the whole idea, and this is a really good point you make, Roger. So the what you got to think about, the whole idea of vaccines in general, is that they mimic the disease. So some of the side effects you get are such that is your body responding to.
Affinity Xtra, be extra.
Yeah, people, this is your boy here, Roger Moore here on Affinity Xtra, celebrating gospel music of Black origin, and you're here on The Edge, and we're doing a special series right now in Black History Month, alongside the NHS, to talk about different health issues and how we perceive it from in our Black community. Also, we are talking to Black professionals, of which I've got one with me today, and it's Dr. Donald Palmer. Now, is a professional, but a professional. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Definitely a scientist. Now, I ain't seen too many of our brothers out there being a scientist, you know what I mean? And so it's absolutely fantastic to not only look at it sometimes when we see doctor and everything, we just think, okay, GP mentality, but we got a scientist with us today to discuss the dreaded COVID, where we don't want to be talking about because it's apparently gone, but it hasn't gone nowhere. But we're going to get into that in a second. But first and foremost, just introduce yourself.
Oh, Roger, you're too kind. You're too kind. So, hello, everyone. So my name is Dr. Donald Palmer. I'm an associate professor. So I'm a professor of immunology. And in terms of view of what is immunology, it's primarily, and we can get into more details, but it's primarily how does the body fight diseases that are caused by germs. Okay, so I study and I also teach that area to students. In addition to that, I'm also the Education and Career Secretary for the British Society for Immunology, and this is the largest collection of immunologists in Europe, and I'm involved in the education and careers of that society. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell. I could say more, but I know time is
I'll dread to be you and your family. I bet you get the phone calls. Yo, got something wrong with him. How do we deal with this situation? What should you take? I bet you get calls all over the place, the family.
Well, I get some calls, but the difficulty, and I think what people, Roger, may not understand is that you have a doctor, which is a someone in the medical profession, someone like a GP, and I'm also a doctor, but I'm not a GP. I'm actually a doctor in terms of education. So you can do, you can do what's called your first degree, which is a bachelor's degree, then a master's, and then subsequently a PhD, which is a doctorate of philosophy. So you studied a particular subject at a very high level, and so you become a doctorate. So that's my area.
Right. So when I saw a professor of immunology now, before we get into vaccines and so on, vaccine and immunization is not something that was invented 80 years ago. It's something that has a bit of a longer history, and but I heard it's gone back even further. So
I mean, Roger, we can go back. If you get a chance, you got to listen to some of the talks by a dear friend of mine. They call him the history man. That's Robin Walker. And there's evidence back in Africa of the idea of using, of vaccination or treating or, enhancing one's immune response. And so this goes back for many years.
Wow.
So the whole idea really, and I'll try and make sure I use as limited technical words as possible, is that the key thing is that when any sort of germ, whether it's a virus, which is very small, or a bacteria enters to the body, we have our immune system that's designed to destroy those germs. And now the problem is that there are certain situations whereby if our body is not reasonably of a certain standing, then what can happen is that microorganism can cause real harm. Is one, if you're very young, where your immune system is not fully developed, and when you're old, when your immune system has become weaker, you're more prone to disease. And I'm sure we can all think of that, isn't it? You know, for example, and we'll may touch on this later, Roger, like flu. We know flu in particular has a much more impact on our older brothers and sisters than our younger ones. Right, and that's because as you get older, your immune system gets weaker. So in order, sometimes that gives your body a fighting chance to remove these germs. You have the idea of vaccines, of vaccination. What vaccines do is they kind of prepare and help the body so that it can then, when it meets the actual germ, it can actually destroy it. You know, I'm a superhero freak. I love superheroes. I love Marvel.
Yeah,
and it's a bit like
I'm DC.
You know,
well, anyway, go.
Yeah,
go on.
Yeah, I know. There's DC and Marvel. It's just, but you know, it's a bit like, you know, the superhero gains his power or gains her power, and they train, you know, with a mentor, you know, and so during that training, and you see, if you want to go DC, but let's look at Batman. You know, so before Batman became Batman, he was training, making sure he adopts his skills, so that when he didn't meet the bad folks, he was able to conquer them. Cool. And that's what vaccines do. What vaccines are is that they train the body, so that when you meet the actual germ, the body goes, "Oh, I've seen you before, and I can deal with this." And one of the things to put this in context, when we're talking about vaccines in general, you know, there's evidence suggests, but no, not evidence. There's a lot of studies to show, Roger, second to clean water, vaccines have proved to be an important measure of public health. You know, because if you look back, and maybe some of your older listeners will remember diseases. My parents do, you know, in the 50s and 60s, which we don't talk about now. Things like whooping cough, measles. Practically all those diseases have almost gone.
Literally, you don't hear about, because I remember smallpox was a thing that, you know, they talked about from I believe the 18th century, 19th century, and they said smallpox. They always get that hint, you know, when you're watching movies, oh, we got this smallpox to reintroduce to the world, but through vaccines and so on, it's vanished. You know,
practically gone. So you know, and so when you consider that equally, we're also, you know, in general terms, we're also living longer. And part of that is down to the fact that diseases that would kill you in childhood, you know, these childhood diseases, diphtheria, etc., have practically gone. And that's principally due to vaccines.
So, no, that's absolutely fantastic, because I think a lot of time we just need to understand the concept of what a vaccine is, guys. Thanks for the explanation, because sometimes I teach myself through watching 2 YouTube videos or WhatsApp videos, and I think that is fantastic. We got an official person coming in explaining how vaccines is. But before we go into the dreaded jab, as people call it, you know, COVID-19, something that I'm keep on saying to people: can we stop getting excited that like it's gone? It hasn't. It is not gone nowhere. Now, from your perspective, now obviously, you know, we're not blaming Boris Johnson, but you know, that was that stage where it all came out, and then all of a sudden we've gone from no high restrictions to everybody do what you need to do. I'm going to my football season, and I've already said to the guys, even with the changing room facilities situation, as much as we're allowed to be in there and do our stuff, I said to the guys, pick up your stuff, do what you got to do, and get out, because we don't want to be. When you're coming into the flu season, the COVID season, it's really highlighted the dangers of not only to ourselves as the healthy footballers, but also to our relatives, that we don't realize when we go and visit our grandmas what it can cause. So we're doing a little precautionary things, but it's almost people looking at me like I'm mad for doing it. Now,
no, Roger, you're absolutely right. As the government has announced, and I think in general, is that COVID is endemic, so it's amongst the population. A majority of people have actually had COVID. May have had mild symptoms, or one should always take precautionary measures. And I think what we should adopt, the simple measures that we don't do, like washing our hands and simple things like that. And I would still encourage folks to maintain those practices. Because what was quite interesting was when some of the procedures around COVID was, you had those restrictions. You had to wear masks, social distancing, etc., etc. Do you know also the level of flu also went down?
Yeah, I heard that fact and I thought, hold on a second. So are you telling me, when we was younger and your mom said, make sure you wash your hands, after you sneeze, make sure you cover your face, you know what I'm saying? These are minor things where I thought was just standard, but when you realized, I'll never forget, they did an interview with a nurse in America, and she said, you know what, it's spreading because people are nasty. That's
what my mom used to say.
Because they don't wash their hands, they're coughing people's faces, they don't cover their mouth, you know what I mean, and certain things. So ultimately, when people actually focus on them fundamentals and stop put their hands up over everything and whatsoever, and keep your hands to yourself, it makes a difference, not only for COVID but also for other transmitted diseases as well.
Exactly, Roger. So the key thing is we should maintain just hygienic standards. What's interesting, I live in London, and there are still public announcements to say, if you want to wear a mask, do wear a mask, etc. And despite all the restrictions going, I don't know if the situation where you are, Roger, but as I say, I live in London, and I still see a reasonable number of people wear a mask.
I was just, that's funny you say that. I just walked in a shopping centre around the corner from the studio, and I'm seeing a number of people wearing masks. And you know what it is? I've still got my mask. I got a certain mask that I wear on my face. I still got it in my top bag, because I'm saying, when I'm ready, when the season comes, mask is on, you know what I mean? And because
and it's encouraging to see, because previously you would only see one or two back in the day, and you'd think they may be odd or there may be a stigma. Now I think it's acceptable. And what I have seen in particular when I travel on public transport is sometimes I see older folks wearing a mask, and I can see the importance in terms of they want to still travel, but they're also taking precautions as well. At most stations, there is still the alcohol dispenser to wash your hands, because, you're touching on surfaces, etc. Really important, because COVID is still circulating. Current policies is that, stay at home until you get better, etc. It's really down to self-responsibility. And so, if you've got COVID and you've got maybe mild symptoms, you think, oh, okay, but I've got to still go to work. And I can understand, if you're the only person who needs the income to survive, I can understand you wanting to work, but you're now passing on COVID to other people. So, because of restrictions have gone, and, previously the government would give folks furlough, so you didn't have to come in. Now that's all gone. So 100%. It's really now down to self-responsibility. And I think the key thing is to, remain cautious, wash your hands and so forth.
There's a theory that masks don't actually stop the spread of the disease. Now, I've heard it out of people's mouths. When I wear my mask, they're going, "What's the point of wearing a mask? It doesn't make a difference." Is that correct or not correct? Because
I mean, the thing was, look at it this way, just to get you thinking about I think people aren't aware of the amount of germs that is in one mouth. Just think of the germs that's in your oral cavity, and think of the reasons why doctors, nurses, dentists, those in surgery wear a mask. Because the likelihood of a patient becoming infected is quite high. And in fact, historically, when the whole process of hand washing came about, Roger, because many, many years ago in hospitals, those sort of things weren't practiced. We're going back centuries ago. And so what used to happen, they used to operate on one person, then operate on another person, then operate on another person. And what would happen is then, not just the health individuals get infected, but they're also infecting their patients. And then the whole idea of hand washing was then recognized, but also the germs that, come from our oral cavity. Think about it this way, and I'm sure folks may have seen pictures. I remember many years ago, they used this as a particular campaign. When you sneeze, look at the aerosol droplets that are produced.
Get graphic. Right? Get graphic on this.
And they're really microscopic. They can, say for example, and I don't want to scare anyone because it's not to scare folks, but it's just
keeping it real.
To keep it, So say for example, someone sneezes in a lift, right? They leave. The aerosols, because they're quite small droplet, can remain in the air for a period of time. You come in, and then you breathe that in unknowingly because it's invisible. You have to remember.
Right, put that mask on, Bridget.
Yeah, but
put that mask on.
What you have to remember is, don't think of mask, but think of the way how disease is spread. The majority of disease that we get is through the oral cavity.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Through what we call the nasal pharynx system. You either ingest something that gives you food poisoning, or you cut yourself so your skin is breached, or it goes through the nasal cavity. So that's so when you think about potential ways germs can enter your body.
Yeah. So you literally put the mask is literally, and no, thanks for explaining that, because you explained it great, because sometimes, again, we see images sent to us via WhatsApp, and I keep on saying this in my shows, and it kind of shapens our mindset towards
and
effectiveness.
The key thing with this discussion, there's evidence that suggests yes, there's evidence that suggests no. With all these things, it's really important that we try and get as much information so one can make an informed choice. Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the key. It's really about making an informed choice. Okay,
so say if, right, so we're coming to the stages now, guys. We're breaking down this come from a scientific perspective, the realness of COVID and whatsoever. So let's move towards, I'm now sitting down in that community going, you know what? I'm thinking about going to my doctor or my pharmacist to say, we might have a quick query about having the COVID injection. Now, for me, I've seen some messages about what's it made up of. It's got chimpanzee DNA. It's got this in it. It's got all sorts of what's inside it. Look at the government website. It explains to you what's the makeup of the vaccinations and so on. What's your response to the makeup of the whatever's animals and the ingredient? I would say effectively the ingredients of the vaccination.
No, Roger, you make a good point. And when we talk about the uptake of vaccine in our community, I want to say from the very outset, I can clearly understand our skepticism. Not only our skepticism, but we do have legitimate concerns. Historically and so forth. So I think it's absolutely right that we question everything.
Good. Yeah. Cool.
So that's for me from the outset. Okay, I really want to make that clear. So my take in all of this is that I'm not, I'm not for or against vaccination. I'm a scientist, and more importantly, I believe in folks making an informed choice based on the information. Now, the key word is correct information.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah.
Because what's unfortunately has happened is, and I can see this, there's been a lot of misinformation. And to a certain degree, such misinformation, and a good friend of mine, Professor Winston Morgan, is a black scientist. He's a toxicologist. He looks at medicines and so forth. And he's got studies, and he's been doing this for a while, where some of that misinformation is deliberately targeted at the black community, targeting our legitimate concerns, and providing that misinformation. And, this, and some of it is really confusing because you've got folks in a white coat, they look professional, but it's really designed to get clicks in order to make income. So what's really required is to get greater scrutiny and do further research and make sure you've got the correct information.
Correct.
So regarding sort of the ingredients, and that's a classic thing with the ingredients, the idea it contains, animal products. That's completely incorrect. It doesn't contain no animal products. It doesn't contain gelatin. I've done some work with the Asian community, particularly the Muslim community.
Yeah.
And as you know, if it contains gelatin or substance like that, they're not going to use it.
Yeah.
Now, here's where the confusion arises, and this is where there's partial truth and how it can be misconstrued.
Okay.
Previous vaccines used to contain gelatin, but this product and many more products now don't. So the vaccines, how they used to be made before, they're made very differently now. So what can happen is that sometimes the misinformation is such that it's out of date.
Okay.
It doesn't contain any animal products. And I know the British Muslim Society on their website have put various information to say that.
Okay.
So it doesn't contain animal products. No, it's got nothing to do with chimpanzee. It can't alter your DNA.
So does it have the live virus in there? Because a lot of people,
it doesn't have the live virus.
Because a lot of people say that they're introducing the virus into your system. So live virus into the system, so your system kind of fights it. So that's why you don't feel well on the day. That's what I've heard. So
the whole idea, and this is a really good point you make, Roger. So the what you got to think about, the whole idea of vaccines in general is that they mimic the disease. So some of the side effects you get are such that is your body responding to. So to a certain degree, some people will feel a bit ill. You may find themselves hot, maybe sweaty. These are all effects you would be producing if your body, if you were introduced to a real virus.
Wow.
So these vaccines and many others, what they do is they mimic, but they're not the actual virus that causes disease.
Right.
Okay.
Got you.
Particularly if we're talking about COVID vaccine, what the COVID vaccine is basically, there's different types, but the common one is it contains a bit of material, but a very small amount of the virus, not the whole virus, small amount of a material that allows the cell to make a small part of the virus. Okay. Right. Got you. And basically, you make an immune response to a small part of that virus.
So it's almost,
and the small part of the virus, which people may have heard, is called a spike protein. And the reason why the vaccine is is designed so you make a response to the spike protein. I want folks to picture, if they can, how a virus works. You see, a virus is very much like somebody coming into a club and causing destruction.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So in order for a virus to work, they've got to get into the club.
Yeah.
What these vaccines do and what your body does is produce what we call antibodies. Or if we're keeping with this analogy, they produce bouncers.
Yeah. I was just building it up in my head. I like it. I like it.
So that when you have the bouncers, I don't know if they still use that term now.
Yeah,
bouncers.
Big man outside. But yeah, bouncers.
Yeah. So when you have bouncers, they stop any untowards coming into a club and prevent destruction, right? So that's what your body produces. It produces these antibodies, these bouncers. So what it does, it prevents the virus from getting into the cell that causes destruction. Because what viruses do is they enter into a cell, and here's what viruses are really good at. When they enter into a cell, they encourage that cell to make more of the virus.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so virus will then make more, go into other cells then will make more of the virus. So it's really important you stop the virus from getting into the cell.
Okay. That's good. Thanks for that analogy, because I think sometimes how you explained it is almost a case of, well, we do take vaccines from for other elements. Like I'm afraid one of my conversations is about the flu virus. You know what I mean, and taking the flu vaccine. Yeah. And I think, like, for me, there's that fear factor, like you said, in our community of mistrust. But like you said, the targeting element, knowing that we're very spiritual in our approaches, in terms of fear of taking this vaccine. It's been, and at the same time you had the Black Lives Movement, and it's even highlighted injustice against Black people. So you almost had a perfect storm for us to go, we ain't taking that stuff. You let me know later.
You're absolutely right. And that's why, when I've spoken to folks, or folks have spoken to me, I recognize, everyone's got a point of view that should be respected, and it's legitimate. I mean, and very much so, because you're right, that perfect storm, because at the same time, remember, the disease itself was disproportionately having an impact on our community.
100%.
And because of a number of reasons. One, the occupation of what we do. So remember what the government said at the height of the pandemic. It said, if you have to go to work, you still have to go to work, but you don't have to. So if depending on the nature of your job, if you're able to work from home, then you did that. But the jobs, sadly, that some of the folks in our community do, many do, like my father, he used to work on the buses. So that way, public transport was still running.
But 0 hour contracts that our people on, we're on front line.
Shops were still open.
And we're working them jobs that you unfortunately had to be out there on the grind, out there 100. And
I mean, look at the health professionals.
Yeah.
You saw the pictures of some of the health professionals that sadly passed away.
Yeah. A lot of them.
And many of them were from,
we're Black.
Diverse communities.
100%. Black, Asian, the ones that are literally going into the... It really adds that trauma to the whole... the whole scenario.
With the mistrust, you can clearly see...
It's a perfect storm.
Folks were clearly, there was hesitancy, and rightly so. And, when the government says, okay, take the vaccine, there wasn't necessarily dialogue and a discussion in our community. So I have to really admire what you're doing, Roger, is to, have me on, and I'm grateful, so that we can have that discussion. And issues and areas that folks have, because I always say, there's no question that it is stupid. It's really more a case of, is there a platform where questions you've raised by the community can be looked at, can be discussed, and can be addressed?
1,000%. And we're going into the winter now. Autumn, winter. And I said to people in the summer, we need to get wised up on what to do. So I'm now watching this YouTube video going, you know what? I might just step over the edge now and take this and somehow approach the vaccination. When we first heard about the vaccine, we heard about when it came to COVID, we had to take booster after booster after booster. Now I'm walking in going, right, I haven't even had any. There's nothing in my blood system with the vaccine. I might have had it without knowing. So how does somebody approach it from that perspective? So is the person staring at having free vaccines before Christmas?
Once folks have looked at all the necessary information, they can contact their GP or health professional to get the vaccination, and they can follow the protocol. Once you feel satisfied that all the questions have been addressed, and then what you can do is you can take the COVID vaccine, and then afterwards you can wait a specific time, and it will vary depending on the vaccine you've taken. Then you can have your booster, and the reason why you need to have boosters is for two reasons. One, if you've taken the vaccine for the first time, you need to have another one in order to make sure your immune system has been sufficiently trained.
Okay.
So invariably having one vaccination is not sufficient, and we're all well aware of this. If any of us have had children, we know in order when we go for the vaccines for our children, we know that they have one set of vaccine earlier on, then they have to have another booster and another. So it's the same thing. It's just what's needed is to make sure that we can improve our immune system.
And get it
the other reasons for the booster is because what happens is we know that viruses will mutate, or they will change their coat of armor. All right.
Good. Yeah.
So what happens is, again, the analogy of the bouncer, and they're saying that, a person wearing a blue jacket and jeans is undesirable. So you've got the bouncers has got his phone and saying, okay, if anybody with that description or fits that description, we're not going to allow them in. But let's say the person recognizes, hold on, I've got to change my appearance in order so I can get into the club. I tell you what, I'll just wear a white t-shirt and I'll wear some grey trousers, so it look completely different. In that way, I can get into the club. All right. So one of the reasons why we also need boosters is so that we can make sure our immune system is equally fit to recognize the different, vaccine viruses, strains that can, permeate. And just to get your listeners to think about this, how scientists describe the names of mutants is based on alphabetical, right? So, and they're normally given the Greek, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, right? So remember, everyone talked about the Delta variant.
Oh yeah.
Right.
It's all flooding back there. Yeah.
Right. So now the current variant that's circulating is called O for Omicron. So that tells you between D and O, there have been different variants have come and gone.
Oh wow.
Right. So
it's not as gone from Delta straight to Omicron. Or
there's been different variants that have come, but have just not lasted long, and have just died out in circulation. Okay, and so that's what happened.
Right. So it's not a thing where literally you go from Delta to Omicron, and then the next one's going to be Zetaphum, and when Zetaphum comes,
each variant is defined and given it's alphabetically. So that's how many changes has occurred.
So when I'm seeing boosters every 6 months, is it that tetanus doesn't evolve as quick?
So tetanus You see, so and Roger, that's a really good question, because tetanus, the vaccine against tetanus, is due to the fact that a particular bacteria, right? Then I'll give you its real name. It's Clostridium tetani. Okay, so that's the name. It's a bacteria that's found in the earth, etc.
Yes,
and, and often, if you are working in the garden and you accidentally cut yourself with a rusty nail, they advise you, look, you better get your tetanus, make sure you got your tetanus jab and everything is sorted. So basically, it's the toxin, it's the product that's produced by the bacteria that cause problem, that can cause tetanitis. It's the same group of bacteria that can cause gangrene. Okay. It's also the same group of bacteria that produces the Botox vaccine, Botox toxin. Okay. The bacteria is called Clostridium botulinum. It's what we call, these are a group of bacteria. The problem with the bacteria is they produce a soluble product that cause harm. So what you do is you make a vaccine against that product.
Right. Got you.
So the key thing is tetanus. So tetanus doesn't change.
So that's why the flu jab, COVID is always.
So bacteria and viruses are very different. And the real key difference is how they can multiply.
Okay.
So bacteria can multiply by itself.
Okay.
If it's got nutrients, it can then multiply. A virus can't. A virus can't multiply until it gets into a cell and it uses the cell machinery to multiply. And because viruses are rapidly growing, viruses often will change. They'll often what we call mutate. Okay, and again, with my Marvel hat on, I'm thinking of the X-Men.
X-Men, man. Mutations.
So think about it like that. If somebody, they change. So which is why, and particularly folks in our community who are 60 or 65 who will have the flu jab. And I will say, Roger, what's really great to see is that amongst our older population in our community, they are regulars for the flu jab.
Brilliant.
They will regularly take the flu jab.
I want to encourage that and keep going.
So one of the things which is really important is, while I and a real take-home message here is that and the flu jab has been going for years, tried and trusted, been no complaints. And while I can understand the concern around COVID-19 vaccine, even though they've gone through the same process of safety, etc., I think what's really important in our community is that given that our elders have always been taking the flu jab yearly, we don't dissuade them from that. So while we may have skepticism about COVID-19, let's not then use that to take a step back. Take a step back. Let's keep jabs, and all the other vaccinations that we're giving for childhood, like polio and measles. Because there's been occasions where there've been outbreaks of such diseases because people decided, no, we're not going to take it. But these are tried and tested vaccines. So for your flu jab, regularly take the flu jab. And we know it's been very important in particularly our elderly community. Because flu, if you're older, it really can impact you.
No, 100%. And underlying issues, and diabetes is
exactly
ravaging in our community. Kidney diseases, these diseases that we have, where we have opened ourselves due to, whether you call it bad practice or not looking after ourselves or bad environments, have really made us even more vulnerable for the flu.
And COVID. You're right, Roger. The term which doctors and health professionals use is what's called comorbidities. And so what we saw with COVID, is the fact that, in our community, we got slightly higher blood pressure, maybe slightly more, high blood sugar, etc. So these sort of underlying
underlying issues,
disease, which may not be apparent.
Yeah.
When COVID comes along, it swings the pendulum.
Yeah. We encouragers. We just need to do this. We need to not be discouraged. By vaccinations in general, because this has highlighted, has kind of pushed people away from, and I don't need anything. My natural body can handle this. I can naturally learn this and learn this program, and actually go away from a practice that has gone back into old, when they use the word olden days or ancient times in Africa, where we've stimulated the body as a black people, to protect us from unseen diseases. We can't see rise.
Absolutely.
And so it's definitely amazing. But I know I got to close off now because guys, we've gone over time only because it's amazing. It's amazing to talk to a scientist about the technicalities of it. And when we've seen all these clever responses and these clever emails and messages, this is about putting the correct information in front of you to make an informed decision. We have made too many decisions over this season based on what we've seen, what we've been given to you, how we've been given the information. So part of this series is to talk to professionals about how they see it, and how they see it from their professional perspective, to now give you the opportunity to make an informed decision. I'm not saying take the red pill or the blue pill. We're not going there, we're not doing that, guys. We're not doing that. We want you to make the informed decision. We don't want you to say we're going to hear testimonies from people who have had COVID. We don't want you to be in that position. And that's being realistic and knowing that you missed a chance all because you never knew. So this is all this part of this series. And I thank Donald for coming on here. Dr. Donald Palmer for coming on here.
Thank you, Roger. I'm humbled, and if I've helped people in terms of making decisions or provided them with sufficient information, I'm honored to do so. Thank you very much to allow me the chance to speak, and for your listeners and for everyone listening to hear what I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. But listen, guys, any questions, do contact us. Any comments you want to make, do make them. And I can send an email over to
seriously. Because it's important.
Yeah.
I think it's really important, and we know this in our community, is that we're not one hit. And so it's really important that, that's why I really like the work that you're doing, is to have that continual dialogue.
Yeah.
And I'm more than happy for that to continue.
No, 100%. Thanks again. And listen, guys, anything, you know what to do, man. Blessings. This is Roger here alongside Dr. Donald Palmer here, talking about the dreaded COVID jab. Bless you guys.
Hey, this is your bishop from Rock Solid. Thank you so much for watching us on YouTube. Thank you so much for clicking and subscribing, and also sending these videos to other people as well. We are so hungry to get your support. So remember, check us out on our website, and also check us out on Insta, and wherever you want to find us on Spotify. You can play us all day as well. And just make sure that you are supporting this channel, that we are developing our agenda towards music of black origin, and that is gospel music with a message. So please walk with us on this journey. Bye now.